Welcome back to...
Sorry. Welcome back to...
our...
Patreon. And my full-time job. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to those of you who upped your donations when I announced that I was asked to resign from my corporate tech job because I was completely checked out from it. Me and Tanner are going all in with content creation now, and we are so grateful for your support. Every single dollar is life-saving.
I really respect you for not spinning that narrative.
What narrative?
Just being like, I quit my job because I wanted to focus on YouTube and doing content.
I thought about that because I was like, especially because I'm doing life coaching, I'm like, is it kind of unprofessional and not in my best interest to be like, I was asked to resign from my job? But then I was like, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But I was like, what's the point in lying? I feel like it's important that we, like, I've been there for 4.5 years, so clearly I'm competent. It's just like, I feel like we need to talk more about how it's not sustainable to stay in these, like, soul-sucking corporate jobs. I mean, it is for some people, and that's great, but it's like, we should normalize just getting burnt out from a job and not being able to give it your all anymore. Like, I don't think it's, like, a character defect. I think it's, like, a good thing that you're, you know, not just able to be so... I don't know what the word is, like owned by a corporation, that you're just, you get what I'm saying.
Samantha,
I just felt that authenticity was the best route.
As one of your many adoring fans, am I right, guys? I think that's something we love about you is how you're just like, yeah, life is complex, and we just gotta acknowledge that.
And I feel no shame.
Yeah,
sometimes it comes. No, I don't. It's fine.
Moral of the story is we're making content.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for making it so that we can do this.
And we love the Jack Whalen series. Or I can only speak for myself. It's my favorite thing. And I feel like the little community that we have here reading the stupid books is really special to me. Sorry for getting, so emo. But I just want you guys to know how much you are really appreciated. And I even referred to us as a family before we started this video, which in the past would have made me cringe. But I think it's true. When you guys... Just nothing. Carry on.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who upped your... Did we already say that?
I just said that.
Yeah, all right.
And obviously to new patrons and to existing patrons and to those of you who had to lower your donations this month.
And those who will yet become patrons.
So last week in chapter 4... we watched, what's his name? Adam go on a date with that high schooler. He's agreed to work for his parents doing computer stuff this summer, so he's probably going to get a porn addiction. I don't think we got any updates on Sister Jano, did we? Although people in the ward were starting to find out that he was a bad missionary or something.
Yeah, the rumor mill.
The rumor mill is churning.
Mormon grapevine.
And what else happened? I don't know, there was some stuff about him, like, not really seeing Lara as his mum as much anymore, and he's kind of having a bit of an identity crisis, and he's conceptualizing it through the lens of, like, if I would have just had my real mum, Charlie, then I would, she was more like me, and the reason that I've been suffering throughout my life is I've tried to be like Lara, or, that's kind of the vibe, right?
Mm-hmm. Some great psychological insight.
Yeah.
The mother wound is the father wound perpetuated.
Jack's willingness to go there with any deep subject, like, the death of a mother. He'll just he'll touch anything. There's nothing he's afraid to write about.
That's what makes him one of the greatest authors of our time.
Okay, Julie said, of course it was Lara's responsibility to keep Adam in contact with his grandparents. Sam wasn't going to do the emotional work of actually thinking about contacting them and arranging for them to spend time together. It's obviously Lara's job, though she has never met them. Yeah. Lara being blamed for the lack of contact with the grandparents.
Oh, it's not just lazy, it's offensive.
It is offensive. Alina says, I hate that Sam gets off the hook and never has to face the consequences of his piss-poor parenting. I was kind of hoping, against all odds, that this book was going to be a reckoning of Sam's past transgressions.
No, literally zero. No. So we don't come to Jack Whalen for self-awareness, for self-knowledge.
I get it, though, because don't you feel like it took me a lot longer than it took you to, like, just emotionally accept that there wasn't going to be any reckoning? I kind of clung on to the hope for a while. Anyway,
After Charlie book 1, I was like, oh, yep, nope, this is not something in the range.
This chapter is really long, and we always get backache sitting on my bed. So we're trying to like save our backs because we just read another book on the main channel. Anyway, so I might be kind of slouchy because I really need to preserve my spine health because I no longer have health insurance.
I think it's fun. I think, Patreon, we let down our hair, we kick back, we have a fruity bev.
We have a green tea with a splash of a sugary juice.
Just a couple fruity bevs for a couple fruity bevs.
Fruity bev of the day. It's actually so good, and I would recommend it. At Trader Joe's, they have this watermelon cucumber cola juice that is amazing, that me and Tanner have drunk we used to drink that when we lived together.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so it's a bit of that mixed with Trader Joe's unsweetened green tea. It comes in like a bottle, so it's like pre-made, which is, in my opinion, an innovation in green tea. 2 days later, the first Wednesday in May, I began working for my parents, designing websites as well as providing tech support. Is this going to be the porn chapter? What do you think?
I hope so.
Yes or no?
I could use a little stimulation.
My dad was on the road most of the time, so my mum and I were together in the office all day. Sometimes it was hard to tell when she was being my mum and when she was being my supervisor. For example...
when she spanked me.
On Friday of my first week, she sat down next to me. Adam, we need to talk. Okay. I know you're just getting into this after 2 years, but I've noticed a trend I think we need to discuss.
She's like, right now I'm your mom. Oh.
Carry on, don't lose the
joke. She's like, right now I'm mom Laura. Now I'm boss Laura.
Whenever Laura said there's something we need to discuss, it really meant I've thought about it and you need to do something differently. What is it? I asked.
Do you really think he would start calling her Laura at this point?
Especially because, like, what has she done? Like, she was really nice to him last week after he just, like,
She's existing as a woman in this world.
What is it? I asked. You do your work very fast, much faster than even Quentin. Even Quentin, that little... Damn it. Weed has rot my brain, like, because I just couldn't think of the words for, like... It's like a phrase that means smarty pants, but it's, like, with box.
With box?
In my head, I'm thinking goggle box. That's obviously not what it is.
Goggle box?
What's it called when someone's smart? Clever clogs. That's what I was thinking.
Clever clogs.
It's actually not being high. It's living in a different country. You like lose phrases, and then you're like, why do I not have access to this phrase I've used my entire life? Oh yeah, because no one said it around me in 9 years. It's weird.
Clever clogs. So drugs are fine. Continue.
The drugs are fine. Much faster than Quentin, so that's good. I'm sure with a little practice I can get even faster. She put her hand on my arm. Well, actually, I don't need you to go faster. In fact, I'd like you to slow down. You need to make sure you've done everything that needs to be done. This sounds just like my performance review last month.
He is about to get asked to resign and focus on his YouTube channel.
I've made a checklist, and I'd like you to use it each time you work on a website. She handed me the checklist. I'd be fuming. If someone tries to, like, up my accountability at work, absolutely not. Except you guys. Okay?
Disrespectful.
I do it all for you. I looked it over. Okay, sure, I can do that. I just think you'll be happier if you don't have to keep going back over what you've already done. Do it right the first time, even if it does take you more time. It was, of course, a reasonable thing to ask, and I did do better once I began using the checklist, but it also felt like I was being hovered over. Mormon boy who just spent 2 years on a mission feels like the checklist is being hovered over. It had always been like that. In grade school, my mum, that is, Laura, thanks for the clarification, we did know your mum was, the real mum was dead.
Jack is such a petty bitch.
It's just, you just know that when he like meets someone who's adopted, he's like, okay, so you are. I'm just trying to understand the dynamics here. Like if he met someone who was like adopted and in contact with their real parent, his little brain would just be like. Ah.
Oh yeah, Jack can't handle real world shit. If he encounters two gay men in this book, he's gonna be like, which one of you is the woman?
In junior high, she mapped out what merit badges I needed in Scouts to get my Eagle. She had even helped me fill out my mission papers. This sounds like every Mormon mother. And now, at age 21, I was still being managed by her. Oh, helped
by her. Your mother is literally doing good shit for you. She's giving you a job.
But this is Jack exploring how he doesn't like it when women try... Like, a lot of the time, there's, like, this... In patriarchal gender role situations, there's, like, this learned helplessness that men will have about certain things. So women will end up taking on like a larger share of some of the work or certain types of work, and then the men don't like always feeling like belittled by that, but then it's also like they're not doing it themselves, and if they don't, it needs to get done. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like this is Jack just kind of exploring that resentment in himself of like, women always trying to get me to do stuff.
I love how the last book was just Adam's perspective, Sam's perspective of why Laura needed to fundamentally change herself, and now this book is just like Sam too, explaining why Laura is bad.
just all of these books are just mansplaining women. I mean, at the end of the day,
literally just criticizing women and be like, they just need to like tone it down and subject themselves to men. Like, that's literally it. Could you just do that?
You're so right. And women are always like the central plot line, and yet they're so poorly understood. And the male characters are always trying to change them, but then they also like write about them with such disdain. And like, oh yeah, interesting. It's all just stuff that Jack must feel about women. It gave me another excuse to unfairly, so there is awareness from Jack, compare Lara to my free-spirited, fun-loving real mum.
Stop.
That's going to be the title episode, my free-spirited, fun-loving real mum. May we all be the free-spirited, fun-loving real mums we wish we had.
We are your fun-loving real moms. We literally look like they're free-spirited, fun-loving real moms from the 90s.
The truth is, I didn't take much satisfaction from my job. I mean, what did I accomplish? Nothing you could touch, drive, cook on, camp in, or fish with. I envied the people we serviced. Bateman Bob, the man in Heber who ties flies, or the woman in St. George who makes fancy quilts, or the woman in Indianapolis who bakes Greek pastries in her kitchen and ships them around the world to her customers. Ooh, the carbon footprint of those Greek pastries stresses me out, but I want one. At least they produce something you can hold in your hand. At home, when I went into the kitchen for a snack, Lara asked me for a hug. I love you, Adam. You know that, don't you? Yeah, I do. I love you too, Mum. I'm sorry if I come down on you sometimes at work. Again, Lara's lovely. Seems like a great mum.
Did not come down, literally just was like, hey, I'm noticing a thing.
She was literally like, use the checklist.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I do think it's tough having your parent be your boss. Like, that seems hard for anyone.
Yeah.
I think it's a bad call.
Yeah.
It's okay. Sometimes I need it. After work the next day, I got a phone call. Adam, is that you? It was Eddie, my grandfather from New Jersey.
I'm surprised he wasn't like, and the sandwich she made me was so bad. She didn't even cut the crust off. I hate it when she doesn't cut the crust off.
I fucking know that Sam and Adam, and probably Quentin, although maybe Quentin is a man of taste, cuts their crusts off.
Oh, Quentin. I thought you were talking about the guy from the book we just read who slithered onto the train.
See, now we're going to start confusing this with our MAGA hat romance series.
All the misogyny just blends together.
It's going to be so hard not to make cross-references.
And I worry about becoming so lost in the irony that people think I am misogynist.
No, you're fine. How are you doing, my boy? Doing great. I'm glad to hear it.
Why has Jack never interacted with an old person? Why does it always sound so fake? My boy, my sweet boy.
Sometimes, though, I would meet, like, Mormon granddads, and I'd be like, why do you talk like you're in a movie? Like, everything they said was just, like, a line that someone could have written with, like, a vague knowledge of their archetype, and it freaked me out. Ugh. I actually felt that in Mormonism generally, but, yeah.
Is it just because everyone's playing by, like, the
and I specifically mean
script.
American Mormon granddads I would meet. Yeah, it feels like they all are just like following a script, and I would often get that sense with American Mormons of like, everything feels so scripted and like there's no room for deviate. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I told him that I was working for my dad, and I guess he picked up on my lack of enthusiasm. You want to come out here and work for me?
He's like, I get it. Your dad sucks.
I've always got more work than I can handle. What kind of work? Mowing lawns, weeding, fixing leaky faucets, routine maintenance. I could teach you everything you need to know. Well, that sounds good, but my folks need me. I'd better stay here. I understand, but you'll come and visit us before school starts, won't you?
Codependency. Your parents can hire somebody else.
I know. But if he goes out to the East Coast with his
there's
newly
liberals out there.
Yeah, exactly. Of course he's going to get a porn addiction. When is the porn addiction coming?
Give us porn now, Jack.
It's like I'm listening to a dubstep song and I've been waiting for it to drop for so long, and I'm just like, every week. I will for sure. You can count on it. After I hung up, I felt bad for turning him down. Doing maintenance sounded a lot more fun than what I was doing. Our home is located... How can you be good enough at computers stuff to, like, be a literal software developer, like, to be a programmer, but just think that it's stupid because it's non-tangible? Again, that feels like Jack's bias, because it's like, I feel like anyone who's an actual programmer doesn't see it as like, this isn't even a real thing. I'd rather be out doing yard work because that's real, a real man with his hands.
Yeah,
and like, if you have put in the time to learn programming, it seems unlikely.
It affects the real world. It's not just like this imagined thing.
Yeah.
Religion is an imaginary thing where you just get together to pretend that there's something else out there.
Our home is located high on the east bench of Salt Lake City. We are well enough... we've gone into the present tense for the first time in the book.
I love when Jack jumps tenses.
We are well... He's never done this in this book as far as I can remember. We are well enough off to live in a house precariously clinging to the steep hillside. Everyone in our ward seems to do well financially, although I'm not sure what anyone does. They're all running MLM schemes, pyramid schemes. That's why you don't know.
Affinity fraud across the board.
Across the board, all the way down. I imagine most of the men also spent their lives in front of a computer monitor, buying, selling, moving virtual money from one location to another. A physics professor's take on rich people. My mum and I rode to work together. She always drove, so I felt like I was in junior high again, being chauffeured around from place to place. I wanted to buy a car, but my folks suggested I wait until I'd saved up at least part of what I would need for my freshman year of college.
Somebody needs to individuate stat. I'm getting
ASAP,
bored.
I know. Since that wasn't going to happen anytime soon, I bought a mountain bike instead. Reckless, he didn't save up. Instead of eating dinner with my dad and Lara, I began riding every evening. After we got home from work, I would change and ride up into the mountains to the top of a peak overlooking the city, where I would sit on a rock and watch the sunset over the mountains west of the Great Salt Lake. It's a nice, healthy habit. I like that for him.
Some real soft boy energy.
Yeah, wonderful. There, all alone, with my t-shirt still sweaty and my face caked with salt from my sweat and dust from my ride, I felt at peace with myself. Finally!
Your clown makeup.
Finally! Once, I stayed too long and had to go down the trail in the dark. After that, I began taking a flashlight with me.
That was maybe the sweetest moment of a Jack Whalen book ever.
The most...
Just a moment of pure serenity. I don't think we've seen it.
And him just, like, finding peace by just going and doing something that's genuinely healthy, not like some weird fucked up self-knowledge retreat or, like, praying or just some regular mindfulness. God, I didn't know how starved I was for it.
Wow, Jack is really growing as an artist.
I would usually get back from my ride just before 10, eat leftovers from the fridge, take a shower, and go right to bed. Lara was serving as State Relief Society president, and she knew lots of women in our stake and their unmarried daughters, often returned missionaries or girls who had graduated from college and were now working. Over the next little while, Lara lined me up with some of those girls. She would offer to loan me her car and even wanted to give me some money to pay for the dates. I used her car but wouldn't take her money. It seemed too much like a bribe. Besides, the dates were mostly a disaster. Is there something about your mum giving you money that you would, like, would you take it if your dad gave it to you?
No.
We've had Sam take... No,
Sam would never give anyone
had a weird
money.
Thing about taking money as well. So they literally lived in poverty rather than...
I love that his reaction to kindness is like, this is a form of manipulation.
Seems like a trap. Mm-hmm.
My real fun mom wouldn't do that.
Besides, the dates were mostly a disaster. In the middle of May, Lara came into my room after I'd returned home from riding up in the hills and showed me a picture of a girl. Isn't she adorable? I suppose. Mormons really do practice, like, kind of, like, semi-arranged marriage, because just thinking about the dating culture in England, or probably just, like, in regular non-religious places anywhere, it's like, I don't know, it's just not so much of a meat market, you know? I feel like it's, like, more common in England to strike up a friendship with someone first, so then when you're, you know, you're, like, actually learning about, instead of this, like, look at the picture, these are her credentials, mission, testimony.
Oh, they're trying to push that hard.
The picture doesn't really do her justice. Oh, her name is Jennifer. She teaches 2nd grade. She loves kids. Her hobbies are scrapbooking and sewing, and her mother tells me she's a very good cook.
Wow, that's very different from all the other girls around, that's for sure.
Do you know what sucks is, like, if that girl wasn't Mormon, like, hearing those things about her, I'd be like, I probably would really like her. But something about just, like, them being forced into those things.
It's like the only hobbies you can have.
Good for her, I said, with a hint of sarcasm in my voice.
Oh, shit.
I could only wonder what this girl's mother was saying about me. Something like, he's a returned missionary, he's going to BYU in the fall, he works for his dad. And then a long pause. He's a very nice boy.
A sweet spirit to boot.
I pitied both Jennifer and me that our lives had come to this.
God, you're so melodramatic.
He is such a drama queen.
Like, beam me up, soft boy vibes.
Lara is very persistent, and so on Saturday I went out with Jennifer. Because our mothers had set us up, there was way too much riding on this. We both knew that when we got home, our mothers would be hoping we'd say, "I've met the love of my life, I'm sure this is the one." "You must be an excellent teacher," I said, over salad at the Italian restaurant I had chosen. She smiled. "Well, I don't know about that, but I do love the kids in my class." "I love kids too," I said. Long pause. But then I panicked. Not that I want any of my own anytime soon. I wiped my brow. After a painful lull in the conversation, I said, "You look nice tonight." "Oh, thanks. You too." She was trying so hard to impress me that when she spilled her drink and some of it ran across the table and got my pants wet, she got all flustered. This is a classic Jack slapstick moment on a date. "No, it's okay, really. Don't worry about it." I spill all the time. To ease her mind, I knocked over my water glass. "There you go. Now we're even."
Jesus.
She started laughing. "You can probably see I'm a little nervous tonight." "Tell me about it. I feel like we're doing this for our mothers. I can imagine them on their knees right now, praying we'll hit it off." She laughed. "Are we hitting it off?" "Look, you've gone out on
Hitting
dates.
the glass off the table. Yes, you are both.
Look, you've gone out on dates like this before, right?" She nodded. "Dozens of times. And nothing's come from any of them, right?" "Right. So most likely nothing will come from this. So just relax, okay? We'll eat, we'll talk, we'll go to a movie. We'll have done our duty and then we'll go home. Nothing to it."
I hate the, like, martyr complex around dating.
Yeah.
Like, it's all just worth it, and woe is me that I have to put in my duty and date, and all these stupid women who want to fall in love with me. I guess I'll agree.
But
like,
the feminists think dating is shameful.
yeah.
Her lower lip began to quiver. I felt awful. Oh my god. A man after his father's own heart making women cry on the first date.
Yeah.
"Look, going out with me isn't exactly the chance of a lifetime. The truth is I'm not much of a catch. You can do a lot better." "Really?" she asked, looking hopeful once again. "Absolutely. In fact, one thing you should know, I was a problem elder on my mission." I said it as if it was something to brag about. She looked puzzled. "Thank you for telling me, I guess." "No problem. Glad to help out." She seemed to relax a bit after that. She even asked if we could have dessert. Of course I said yes. I looked over the menu and recommended cannoli, so we both ordered it.
She's gonna think they can dry hump later, but he's like, not that type. He's like, I wasn't that problematic
It's
of an elder.
really just about the cannoli.
I just
for me.
wanted to baptize my grandparents and eat tiramisu.
I only lusted after a tiramisu in my heart. "So you teach second grade, right? Let me ask you a question. When you have parent-teacher conferences, can you usually tell which parents go with which kid?" "Sometimes. Because the kid looks like his folks, right?" Oh, God. This is, like, also coming across a bit unhinged. She's, like, asking girls, oh, bless him. "Yes, most of the time that's true." "Okay, but could you tell which mum went with which kid by the way the kid acts in class? I mean, like, if a mum is outgoing and friendly, would her son be like that too? Or if a mum is kind of a perfectionist, would her boy be like that too?" "Sometimes, but not always." "Could we go to your classroom?" Okay, really trying to work out his mummy issues with this one. "Sure, if you want to." "I do. Finish up and let's go." This has the same energy of that Parks and Rec episode where Will Arnett gives Leslie Knope an MRI on their first date, except he's insisting it. A few minutes later, I got a tour of her classroom. She spent 10 minutes showing me the calendar and posters and pictures she had made to hang on her classroom wall, and she showed me her lesson plans. She talked with great enthusiasm. "You just light up when you talk about teaching," I said. "I love it." At my suggestion, we sat down across from each other in the tiny desks.
Now, this book was definitely not written in 2022. Every single teacher I know is like, what the fuck?
Teaching!
Yeah.
We love you, Mary.
All the teachers out there, you've changed our lives for the better.
"I wasn't a good student in grade school," I said. "I was smart enough, but I was easily distracted. I found the people in my class more interesting than the textbooks. I guess I'm still that way." I talked about my childhood, and she listened politely and even asked me some questions. An hour later, I looked at my watch. "Oh my gosh, we've missed our movie." She shrugged. "I don't care." "Me either, actually," I said, standing up. "Let's go. I've bored you enough for one night." Again, such a sad boy, so self-deprecating. Sam wasn't quite as self-deprecating.
He should have been, though.
This is evolution in action. "Why did you tell me about when you were in grade school?" Well, the truth is, and I know this sounds lame, but I'm trying to find out who I am. The lamest thing. I'm like, isn't your whole religion about telling you who you are?
Yeah.
On the way home, she asked, were you really a problem elder on your mission? I thought about it, then said, I don't know how to answer that. I worked hard and always tried to do my best, but I did get in hot water with my mission president. What did you do? Cat's out the bag, guys.
Okay.
Tried to keep him in there, quiet as a mouse.
Come on, buddy.
One of the sister missionaries thought I liked her. That wasn't true, but she called our mission president and complained, and he took her word and transferred me. After that, I had a bad reputation. A few minutes later, we were standing on her porch. If you told me now that you liked me, it wouldn't get you into trouble, she said. I don't get it. Oh, as in, like, he got in trouble on his mission, so it's kind of a flirty thing to say. Like, well, if you said you liked me, you wouldn't get into trouble. I wouldn't transfer you.
Wow.
I do like you, Jennifer, but there's something you need to understand.
You're a woman. You could never be my leader. You could never make decisions for me or over my life.
What? Until I get things figured out in my mind, I'm not going to be much good to you or to anyone. I would argue that this would be a time in your life when you'd be most vulnerable to getting into a codependent dynamic with a woman who just wants to nurture you, but who am I to say? She gave me a sad little smile and then quickly kissed me on the cheek. Oh my god, this chapter's so fucking long.
Shit.
We've got 14 more pages left.
Oh my god.
Call me anytime you need someone to talk to. And then she went inside. One thing was very clear to me as I drove home. I had no business seeing anyone until I got my life straightened out. When I got home, I told Lara I would not let her line me up anymore. How are you going to meet other girls then? She asked. Oh, Mormon mums being so invested in their kids dating because otherwise they might leave the church.
My mom wasn't that invested. She set me up with her friend's daughter and then someone with my same last name.
Oh.
Riddle me that.
The thought of my mum trying to set me up with one single person or even engage with me, even say one single thing about dating to me, I would never. I was literally the type of teenager where if my mum, she would never even dare to ask, but if she said something vaguely dating, I would be like, oh, you're being so annoying. I'd just storm off. It's really triggering for me.
Banksy is looking so sultry with his little...
He's having a sexy day, huh?
What you been up to, pal?
Shedding his winter fur, new me. New fur, new me. How are you going to meet other girls? I guess that's my problem then. Why do you have to go biking every night after work? I have to. It's the only way I can unwind. I continued to withdraw into myself, and that led to another problem. On the last Thursday in May, after biking... Oh, no. On the last Thursday in May, after biking up the mountain and back, I ate, took a shower. Then, instead of going to bed, I decided to get on my computer and check my email.
Womp, womp, womp.
I sat down at the computer in my room and started to surf the web.
A computer in your room, that's your first problem. You gotta keep it, in the middle of the living room so everyone feels way too much shame to try.
And within minutes, by not being careful, I ended up at a porn site!
What?
It's happening!
We're getting our Jack off!
I'm so scared for how Jack's gonna write about this. Where is the vape?
Okay. Can we just really quick, I love how, this could have been such a moment of, a dramatic build of, I saw an ad, or I saw a woman that, enticed me, and then I typed in a close something, kind of resisting, but he's just one thing led to another. I went from email reading a notice from my new grandpa, and then immediately was I gotta watch some porn. Whoop, how did that happen?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. All right, we had a little snack break. We got some vegan peanut M&Ms, and we're ready to jump back in.
Feels like a pioneer trek.
I know.
We're walking across...
Again, 14 pages left. When I got home, I told Lara I would not let her line me up anymore. Oh, we did that. Oh, sorry, porn, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just and then I happened upon some porn, and yeah.
Okay.
Jack has no idea how to create tension.
Instead of immediately getting out, I decided to see how bad it was. I love... He never describes anything as my heart started racing or like anything. It's always just like, I decided this, but there's never any like exploration of like how you decided that or like what was going on with you.
No, nothing. Just like, how bad does this really get? He's like, bukkake?
Oh no, the return of a bukkake joke. Instead of immediately getting out, I decided to see how bad it was. It was very bad. And when I turned off my computer an hour later, I vowed never to do that again.
Oh my god. Ew.
This is how they think a porn addiction starts. Just some innocent boy accidentally comes across it.
And decides to see how bad it was. So bad. Like...
And it's so
I wish
clear.
he'd even tried and just been and failed miserably. I would have respected him more, way more, if he had written something just horrible. But instead he was just like, oh yeah, I got to a porn site, very bad. Well, I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
This is the central conflict of the book.
Also, like, you're so much more likely to get a porn addiction if this is the way that you are and this is the way your life is. Like, it's so obvious how... Remember the first Mormon's, like, John Dehlin retreat we ever went to? He did the exercise of like try not to think of a pink elephant. Anyway, all I'm saying is that like things being forbidden only makes them more erotic, and the church is just so stupid in its approach to like wanting people to not have porn addictions, because everything they do is like facilitating the creation of porn addictions. I know that porn addictions as like it's not how the church sees it. Like that is a more extreme. They class a low level thing as a porn addiction, but either way, porn addiction is also real.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like compulsive.
Yeah, as much as any compulsive behavior can be real, and it is one that can become compulsive.
Maya Dehlin made a great tweet thread about that today, about how porn doesn't cause addiction, shame causes addiction.
Yep, it's just another way of like self-medicating or regulating your nervous system like anything else. You know, if you're a person who's prone to falling into addiction. Since
obviously the picture has been painted that he's struggling, feeling out of place in this world.
He's been going on these bike rides. I kind of feel like this is shitting on the bike rides. It's like, they're the healthiest thing he's doing, but it's almost being written about as like, because you weren't out dating girls, you turned to porn. That's why you need to find a wife, to stay away from porn. That's really basically the logic.
Do you ever think that was his first time? It was written about so nonchalantly.
I don't know. Probably was.
To be determined.
But the next day, I couldn't quit thinking about what I had seen. I'm like, you've been
double penetration. I wanted so bad to be gagged.
She jerks me off through the window of a car.
I'm stuck in a laundry machine.
That one is always a win. And late that night, after Lara and Dad were both in bed, I found myself sitting in front of my computer, feeling guilty but unable to turn away. On Saturday night, I returned to the site again. I knew that what I was doing was wrong.
The same one? Switch it up a little.
And I felt guilty, and I once again promised myself to never go back. The way this is written about, like, really just makes it seem like there was never any free will, so how can we blame him? Because it's like he just sees this thing once, and then it's like this infestation in his brain. Like, how's that his fault?
Right.
Big tech. Break up big tech.
It's sort of like, I mean, this is a different conversation about the way that, like, meth literally hijacks your brain and you are incapable of making rational decisions. So it's like, at what point is a person even responsible?
Yeah.
You know? All
yeah.
That. Porn is not so much that.
I just feel like porn is not that good. But to Mormons, it's like the most illicit thing in the world. But I feel like if you just don't have a complex about it, it's like, I don't know. It's not like the most amazing thing in the... Like, the way that they vilify it is glorifying it in a way.
Yeah. I sometimes feel that. It's like when people are like, I couldn't just, like, be like a porn star. I'm like, thank God. Like, it's... A lot of it's very off-putting because it doesn't feel real. And I feel like you can sense when a person, like, doesn't feel... isn't feeling pleasure and enjoying the experience. It's like, I don't want to watch that. Like...
On Sunday morning, as I got ready for church, the seriousness of what I'd done during the week hit me. I didn't feel like going to church, but I knew if I didn't, my mum and dad would want to know why. If I said I was sick, Lara wouldn't just let it go. She'd do everything she could to make sure I got better.
What a bitch.
I decided to go to church because if I didn't, it would raise too many red flags for my parents. Like, this is the place that you're supposed to go to feel comfort, and, like, now it sounds like you're really struggling with shame. But your church is a place where shame is not, do you know, it's just...
Right. It's only going to drive...
How good of a hospital is it, you know? And you feel like because you've done this one thing wrong that no one's even going to know unless you tell them, which is you probably will, because, like, you have been conditioned to tell on yourself. Oh, God, it's just such a horrific system, and I feel so bad for all the, like... Well, boys especially, I know it's not just boys, but, like, boys who go through all this bullshit and, like, they're not allowed to jerk off and they're not allowed to watch porn and... And then they think they're porn addicts. Mm-hmm. During the opening song, I turned to my dad. I left something in the car I need to get. Oh, is he avoiding the sacrament? Mm-hmm. I wandered into the cultural hall and looked around. The hall was dark, providing a dreary setting that perfectly matched my mood. I sat on the stage and waited for the sacrament to be blessed and passed. I could hear the meeting through the sound system, and during the prayer on the bread, I sat with my shoulders slumped and my head down. Waves of guilt washed over me. I'd heard all the warnings about how destructive internet pornography could be, and the images I'd viewed popped into my mind.
Literally, what has it done? Like, it hasn't done anything. There's no way that it's negatively impacted his life other than Other
than the shame?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, that's probably the reason you, like, watched it every single day for 4 days in a row is because you kind of had this, like, binge mindset because it's so all or nothing, you know? It's like if you go on a diet and starve yourself for ages, then you feel like you need to eat all the food at once, so you end up eating more than if you just let yourself eat, like, the quote-unquote bad foods every day. Mm-hmm. Like, basically restriction, repression, suppression, like, none of that works.
Right.
It was driving me crazy.
It's like when a person came out as gay and my dad was like, they're going to have such a hard life. And it's like, literally only because of people like you. Like, it's only bad because y'all are so hung up on it.
I've got to stop this, I thought. If I don't, it will destroy me. You already have the story in your mind that it's going to destroy you. When the sacrament was over, I went into the chapel and sat in the overflow area for the talks. After sacrament meeting, on my way to class, I ran into the bishop. He said hello and stopped to talk. I thought about asking to set up an appointment with him, but I decided I needed to get the problem under control before I meet with him. Another mistake.
You always
should have sought spiritual counsel immediately. That would have fixed it. See, that's the thing. In Mormonism, there's always a reason. Like, there's always a way to... The truth of the matter is, like, a lot of Mormon boys are set up for, like, a fixation with porn or a porn addiction because of just the nature of all the systems that they live in. But then, like, instead of bringing empathy to yourself, which is ultimately going to be the thing that could solve the problem, like, you just... Like, you would know that most Mormons would think it was wrong that he waited to see the bishop. You should go see the bishop immediately. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is, it probably doesn't matter when you saw the bishop. Like, it's probably going to... If it's going to be a problem, it's going to be a problem whether or not you see the bishop. Mm-hmm. Like, the shame's there with or without. Doesn't really matter if the bishop's involved or not.
Mm-hmm. Also, like, it's like 90% of people, like, men watch porn, just, like, across the board. Like, 70% of women or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, just... This is what... Animals with free time, you know?
Mm-hmm. He'd been my bishop since I was a priest. He'd always spoken highly of me. I didn't want to disappoint him. Monday was Memorial Day. I began the day with optimism that I could overcome this problem. So it's like he sees it once and then it's like every single day he's like completely driven to do it. I worked with my folks in the yard during the day. At 4, we went over to my grandparents on my dad's side for a barbecue.
Do you think, is this Jack's reckoning with his personal experience?
I bet it is. There was enough family around to take my mind off my problems. That night at 2:30 in the morning, I woke up to go to the bathroom.
Big mistake.
When I returned, I turned on my computer and once again messed up. This is the clearest case study in why shame doesn't work, because like he could not be feeling worse about this. It's not like he's like la-di-da, this is fine. He's feeling intense shame about this, so intense that he doesn't even know how to seek comfort or like advice about it. And it's do you know what I mean? But I still feel like it's going to be written about as like he was too weak, he wasn't like doing the right, he wasn't praying enough, or there's just always, porn is one of those amazing tools for a religion like Mormonism to just keep people in shame cycles. Mm-hmm. And it's just a completely made up problem. Well, there's like, you know, people can, yeah. On Tuesday after work, when my folks and I pulled into our driveway, Sierra and Kiera were shooting baskets in their driveway. Adam, get over here right now, Kiera said, sounding like a drill sergeant. When I was a few feet from them, she passed me the ball.
He's like, I'm triggered from my companion.
Oh, God. Go ahead and shoot. I dare you. You'll never make it. Why do you say that? Because I just know. I shot and missed. No big surprise there, Kiera said, smiling at me. Watch this. She shot from the same spot and missed. No big surprise there, I said with a slight smile. You want to play horse? Kiera asked. Sierra, the one closer to my age, wasn't saying much of anything, but when I passed the ball to her, she smiled at me. I'll take you both on, I said, in my most menacing tone. We had a great time. We pretended to care about the game, we traded insults, we laughed, we tried dumb trick shots, which were never made.
God. It sounds like my journal from when I was like 13. You know?
That does actually, doesn't it? We laughed. Yeah. It was fun and I felt happy and glad for their friendship. And then something happened. Oh my fucking God, Tanner. I think we're about to encounter the worst of Jack we've ever encountered. Because he's never really touched sex before. Fucking hell. And then something happened. Sierra bent over to pick up the ball.
Is this the high schooler?
Listen, yeah, the high schooler.
Where are you going, Jack?
Her shirt didn't cover everything, and I saw skin. Nothing bad, really. It wasn't what she did. It was what it made me think of. Oh my God. Like, porn is responsible for you sexualizing women's bodies. No, you're sexualizing...
It's women in general are responsible.
Yeah. It's like, no, you're going to feel that regardless of the porn because you're seeing her skin and you're a boy who's been taught that it's wrong for her to show that skin.
And you're just a human animal that likes other human animals.
If anything, porn would desensitize you to stuff like that in the real world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, if
because
you're
everything's
used
just
to
like...
just watching people, like, have 5 men jizz on their face, I don't know what he's into. Then, like, you're not going to get...
It was really bad, we know that.
Then you're not going to get turned on by a flash of some high school girl's skin, are you?
Right.
Unless you're watching a lot of high schooler porn, which begs other questions. Anyway, I just think it's so juvenile and upsetting how little Mormons understand porn and everything
sexuality
around sex.
In general.
Because it's just so harmful and people are just... Ugh. Like a dam breaking, a flood of unworthy thoughts poured into my mind, and I was suddenly looking at these 2 innocent girls, so that now his thoughts are including...
The high schooler and
the
her...
13-year-old, in a way that I had learned from watching pornography.
Excuse me, does he just say he's watching... Excuse me?
He's looking at them in a way that he'd learned, so he's imagining having sex with them, basically.
Ew, what the fuck? Jack, what the actual fuck?
It's fine to have sexual fantasies, right? But just the whole way that this is being connected. Also,
about
why is the child? Yeah, exactly. It's like, are you watching 13-year-olds? Why would you sexualize the 13-year-old?
No, what
because
the fuck?
her older sister flushed skin.
What the fuck?
But I think in a Mormon's mind, like 13 is an age where you might start having sexual thoughts about a girl.
I actually am feeling really weird.
It's real though, isn't it? Like the link between like sexual, because they do sexualize 13-year-old girls' bodies because they tell them to cover them up.
They do.
So, and if you're being told to cover up, that's the age when a culture's sexualized you. They were no longer 2 cute girls who were fun to be with. I was looking at them as sexual objects, not girls with freckles, not girls who made me laugh, not nice neighbor girls who were making an effort to be friends with me.
Not literal children.
Like, suddenly they're not, he's not thinking of them like friends anymore because he's like watched people have sex. Like, that's not what sex is like.
No.
It's not like... Because you watch sex or you have sex, suddenly, like, every other relationship becomes meaningless.
Right.
And everyone's just fodder for your rampant sex addiction.
Yeah.
It's like, these are your friends. You wouldn't, like, watch porn and then, like, lose the ability to see them as that.
Oh.
It's so ridiculous.
It's objectifying, but not because the act is itself.
Yeah.
It's
the way it's being written about and talked to, and the lack of self-awareness and like what Jack is revealing about the mindset.
With children, Jack. Oh, just when I think Jack can't literally go any lower. God.
And it's like...
Jack sucks so bad.
Just, again, like if you do one thing, it's akin to everything. So, you know, it's like if you, like, try a puff of weed, you might as well have done heroin, you might as well have done all these things. And it's like that, but with, like, children.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean? He's not just having a sexual fantasy about, like, okay, the 16-year-old girl. It's like, she's a child.
Next, it's going to be like...
They're both children. I didn't mean to imply that they were.
It was so bad. And the next time I saw a horse, I couldn't help but think...
I must have thought I could keep the things I had seen on... This is like just Jack trying to like... This is what's so funny and sad about this. This is what Jack and many people in the church think is what people need to internalize to stay away from porn, but you're actually just completely misrepresenting everything, making it more likely that people are going to fall into harmful stuff with porn.
Which ultimately serves the purpose of making them more interdependent on the organization.
This got really heavy, huh?
Yeah.
Because it really, I mean, this is like one of the core things with Mormonism is how it uses sex to control. I feel like that's really one of the core harms when you really break it down, because it's the core tool for shame.
And your sexuality, your personal sensuality is like your creative force.
Yep.
It's your spiritual force is connected with it, and it's literally just
Me
like
when I'm watching bukkake. I don't watch bukkake.
let the Mormon rumor mill fly. We'll burn down that press too.
I didn't know it would not only alter how I looked at normal girls and women, and children, but how I felt about myself. I felt dirty. I felt evil. I felt warped.
Oh my god. Mormonism is so fucking toxic.
And do you know what the implication is? Because Mormons know that everyone doesn't, like, feel warped every time. Or maybe they do think
They do. They do. That was like my dad being like, every time people have sex outside of marriage between a man and a woman, it always leads to shame and guilt and remorse. And I wrote back and I was like, that's just literally not true. You've been conditioned to view sex with shame. That's not the reality for most people. Sorry. Like.
But I think sometimes they do imagine that they feel it more because they're so holy and pure. It affects them
They become
more.
desensitized. Yeah. But it's so true. You like, when your sexual needs are being met and you're just like a healthy person with an integrated sex life, like you're not over sexualizing everybody. Like I remember being a Mormon, like the hint of a sexuality in a movie would have me like sweating and I'd be like, and now I could like see people in like a rated R movie having, you know, movie sex and just be like, beautiful, like how nice. And I'm not like, oh my god.
Yeah. Sometimes you accidentally walk into an orgy. It's not that big of a deal.
Sometimes you shut it down because it's a school night.
I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to puke up the images I had stored in my mind by watching pornography. This would definitely lead to a healthy sex life.
Yeah. He's gonna have a vomit thing.
I felt like I was carrying a disease within me. And the only way I could protect Sierra and Kiera was to leave.
It's just your body. It's just your own sexuality. You're so fun.
But note the tie into modesty culture, because in this scenario, Sierra, her shirt just accidentally came up.
Mm-hmm. Which is why women should only wear prairie dresses, right? Am I right? Bonnets, the whole shebang.
But we haven't beat you yet, Kiera called out. I ran home, changed into my workout clothes, and rode away on my bike. Half an hour later, as I was biking up a trail, I kept asking myself, what have I done? I didn't want to sink deeper into the hole I was digging for myself. I wanted to stop watching pornography, but the truth was I wasn't sure I could. Not with a computer in my room, and not in a job where I worked on a computer every day.
This
does sound like a porn addiction. Like, that is a porn addiction. If it's like, I so badly want to stop and I truly cannot. So in like 4 days, he's developed an addiction, which I would say is not physiologically very possible.
Yeah, it's like just he realizes that like there's a strong compulsion that like that there's also like the recognition that it's like fundamentally out of your control, like unless you turn to Jesus.
At the top of the mountain, I cried, I prayed, I made resolutions. But at 10 that night, while making my way slowly down the trail, I had doubts I would ever be able to stop. It was a cloudy night, no stars, no moon, and my flashlight batteries were nearly dead. Oh my god. It's like he's being punished. Halfway down the trail, the flashlight went out and I was all alone in the dark. I could barely make out the trail ahead of me. I stopped and knelt down and tried to pray, but it didn't work. I didn't feel worthy to pray. I thought I'd lost any chance that God would ever hear my prayers. I quit praying and stood up. The darkness around me seemed to be enveloping me. Not only darkness, but evil. Sick images from porn sites I'd visited flashed through my mind and wouldn't go away.
What kind of images, Jack?
Name one. No! I shouted to the darkness. I jumped on my bike and rode as fast as I could, recklessly defying the darkness, racing down the mountain in a headlong, desperate flight from myself and from the depression that had closed in all around me.
This seems really dangerous.
Yeah. Also, just like, sucks to be that scared of your thoughts because they're just going to keep coming more. If you're like, even having them in my brain, is it horrible?
Oh, that was being a Mormon teenager.
A recipe for OCD.
Oh, yeah.
More than anything, I wanted to escape the darkness around me and the darkness within me. I wanted to be bathed in light. Oh, and how convenient that this church, which you give 10% of your money to. My front wheel hit a rock and I went over the handlebars, hitting my head on a rock and knocking myself out. I didn't know how long I was unconscious, but when I came to, I sat up. My head was throbbing. I felt my forehead. It was bleeding. I panicked, worried I'd bleed to death.
Been there.
For the first time in my life, oh my God, Mormons are so dramatic. I was terrified of dying because I was not prepared to die. Because he accidentally looked at porn for a few days. Didn't realize how powerful it was. I pleaded with God to spare my life, to give me one more chance, to help me turn my life around. I promised him if he would, I'd never disappoint him again.
Never, ever.
I'm not sure I expected when I ended my prayer. What I hoped for was a way to get to... Oh, do you know what I could see, though? I could see Jack kind of, like, actually wrapping up this porn addiction quite neatly, because I don't see him able to, like, write about it for that long.
Yeah, Jack can't do
And Jack
shit.
has to believe that Mormonism has the answers to porn addiction, because they do believe that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not going to take long for this character to be like, I came to Jesus.
Right.
And then it will be like, and then it was fine.
And then I married Sister Danelle. It all worked out great.
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, how's Jack going to... Because to me, it sounds like this guy is in a grip of a thing that is going to be really hard for him to get out on based on what he's saying so far.
He's going to learn. He's going to get self-knowledge. He's going to finally understand what the atonement is really all about.
Love when Mormons find out what the atonement is really about. It happens every so often. Yeah. Yesterday was Tanner's birthday.
Woohoo!
And just thought you guys should know. Do with that information what you will.
Repeating my birthday outfit.
Okay, so he's just like bleeding out to death on a rock. What I hoped for was a way to get down the trail, but nothing had changed. If anything, the clouds were thicker, the visibility worse. Then it began to rain. I gave up any hope of making it down the trail. I moved underneath a large pine tree and waited. Eventually, my cut quit bleeding, and I went to sleep. I woke up several times during the night.
He's just sleeping on the trail?
He's really resigned himself.
Oh, wow.
Each time I did, I thanked God that I was still alive and asked him to help me survive the night.
What the fuck?
At 4:30 in the morning, it stopped raining and started to get light enough to see my way down the trail. So it was like the middle of summer then, I'm guessing, if it got light at 4:30 in the morning.
What year is this again? Doesn't he have a cell phone?
2004?
He should have a phone, right?
You would think. He works with computers. Maybe they're too risky. My front wheel was bent, so I had to walk home carrying my bike. When I entered our house, I was relieved that my parents were still in bed. I guess they'd fallen asleep before the time I usually came home.
Is it just me or does it feel like a drama thing to like sleep on the trail?
Oh yeah, drama
this is
queen.
Like
He
when
is
my
a drama
parents
queen.
forgot to pick me up at a baseball game, so I was like, I'll just go sleep in the bushes.
Aww. Also thinks he's sleeping so cute. He's like, I'll just sleep at the edge of the frame and I won't make a peep.
And if you want, you can pet my belly. He just winked at me, I swear to God.
He does. I've taught him to wink as he's slow blinking at you. That means he loves you. He's slow blinking at you, Tanner. Slow blink back at him.
Slow blink.
Oh, he loves you. I washed the wound on my forehead and the blood off my face. It looked like I might need stitches, but I was too tired to worry about that then. Instead, I went to bed and soon fell asleep. A little before 8, my dad came into my room to wake me up. When I sat up, he saw my head. Adam, what happened? I fell off my bike last night. I'm okay, though. You've got to have a doctor examine you. I know, I'll go this morning. I'll take you. No, that's okay. You've got a plane to catch, don't you? I can get to the doctor. I'll take the later flight. Get dressed. I'm taking you. An act of parenting from Sam.
Wow. Character development. First time we've ever seen it.
My dad took me to our family doctor. The doctor examined me and cleaned the wound. He said it probably should have been stitched up, but that it was too late now.
It's funny. Is this just because at this point Laura is the
Laura's
foil,
the villain, yeah.
the villain, and in the last book it was Laura too.
He cleaned it thoroughly and put a bandage on it. When my dad and I left the doctor's office and got into the car, he turned to me and said, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, sure." The doctor said, "I'm not talking about what the doctor said. Is something bothering you?" "What about your travel plans?" I asked. He shook his head. "It can wait." I felt guilty for keeping my dad from his work. "Okay, look, you don't need to take the day off. I can tell you what the problem is now." "Tell me then." I turned away.
I can't imagine Sam being this inquisitive about anybody else. He's never... he's like a fake person that we're reading about now because Jack Whalen consciousness now exists in the character of Adam.
Yeah, but I feel like now his son's older, it's like... As kids get older, it becomes more and more important to kind of keep them in the church because they're just going to be in the church when they're younger. And so now it like reflects on Sam how Adam's doing in the church. Everything just links back to how you're doing in the church, right? If you're not doing well, then it's like you're not churchy enough. I couldn't face him and say what I had to say. It's pornography. I've been going online late at night. How long has this been a problem? I sighed. It's been about a week. I've done it 4 times.
Sorry, he said, I couldn't say what the problem was.
Well, he was saying
I couldn't
face him to say it.
Oh, I see.
What about before your mission? Nothing before my mission. The first time I ever did anything like this was last Thursday. But it's taking over my life.
That was his first time. Jack.
After each time, I promise myself I'm never going to do it again. But I keep messing up, Dad. I've got to stop this. No matter how much I say I'm not going to do it again, it still happens. I feel like I'm losing all my self-control. He nodded. Have you talked to the bishop?
That'll fix everything. Your dentist/bishop should be a pro at overcoming compulsory behavior.
Your fun-loving, free-spirited, real dentist bishop. I was hoping I could overcome the problem before I talked to him.
You stuck that landing.
I know, don't you love it? I was like, I can't believe I remembered like 6 whole words in my state. I shook my head. I'm not sure I can tell him. It's too embarrassing. He'll help you if you work with him. I sighed. I never thought I'd have a problem like this. Nobody ever does. I hadn't looked my dad in the eye since I'd admitted my problem.
Your dad has been addicted to bondage, domination, sadomasochism since the time I was 27, son. You never think it'll happen to you.
Now I did. We made eye contact. I could see his concern. It was reassuring to know he still loved me. All right, I'll meet with the bishop. Good. The battle's half won then. I hope that's true. I thought we were done and my dad would take me home and then make arrangements for a later flight, and that within an hour he'd be gone for a couple of days. But the truth is I didn't want him to go. I wanted him around. This was a problem that a dad and his son could work out. Oh my god, that sounds so horrifying.
Yeah.
Who has the kind of relationship with their dad where they would ever want to talk about porn with them?
As my father was my bishop.
I wasn't sure I could talk to Lara about it. Or that, even if I did talk to her, she'd understand the temptation, because women don't have sex drives.
Right.
Anything else that's troubling you? My dad asked. I answered too quickly. No, nothing. Everything's fine. Are you sure? Nothing that I'd need to talk to my bishop about. Something else, then? Nothing really important. We can talk about it after you get back from your trip. My dad shook his head. I'm not going anywhere today. This day is for you. So we'll work at the office with Mum then, right? No, let's take the day off. You never take the day off. Then I guess it's about time I did. How are you doing now? You want to just take it easy and rest, or do you want to do something? I feel okay. I probably won't do any mountain biking for a while, but other than that, I feel okay. You sure? Yeah, I'm fine. How would you like to go fishing? We haven't done that for a long time. Sure, that'll be great. 3 hours...
I used to take your real mom fishing.
3 hours later, we were anchored in a boat at Strawberry Reservoir, watching our lines, waiting for a fish to take our bait.
Isn't that where we go?
Strawberry Reservoir? I don't think so.
Oh, isn't that the one with the beach?
That's Pine View. These are the same fishing poles your Charlie and I used when we went fishing before we were even married. I love how he stopped himself from saying your mum and said Charlie instead. That's a weird thing to do.
It's just because it's Jack writing.
Jack's like, there can only be one mum. Which mum will win? It can't be both of them.
It doesn't matter who's talking about it. It's always from Jack's perspective.
Yeah. He examined his reel. You can tell this is old because it was made in the United States. Oh, that's a little bit of a tiny whistle blow, isn't it?
What was old because it was made in the United States?
The fishing pole. Just the idea of things used to be made here and now the immigrants have come in and now we make everything overseas, you know what I'm saying?
Now it's all from China.
20 minutes later, we hadn't even had a bite.
I mean, his industry is being overtaken by Japan. There's just no argument.
This kid's got a porn addiction now, so his business is going to tank. Having a good time, he asked. I did my best to be positive. Oh yeah, sure. Who wouldn't be having a good time? I mean, it's so quiet here.
Yes, no sounds of pleasured women. Squeals of delight.
He laughed. You're a lot like your mum. She didn't like fishing either. Dad, can you tell me more about my real mum? What do you want to know? Everything. Her parents let me look through some of their scrapbooks of when she was growing up. They told me lots of stories about her. I feel like I really need to know what she was like. Why? Imagine saying why to your son saying I need to know what my mum was like. Okay, look, I know it's because it's again, Jack doesn't have a clear enough vision for the characters.
Yeah.
So he's just trying to move the plot along, which is Adam needs to tell Sam that he feels like he's not enough like Lara and he's not whatever.
Yeah.
Also, I just still don't even get like what the issue is. I'm excited to hear him explain it. Okay, look, I know it sounds like I don't love Lara. I mean, Mum, but that's not it.
I mean, Mum.
It's just that I'm not sure who I am. At work, it's not as much fun designing websites as it was before my mission, and now I'm questioning if I even want to major in information systems. I feel like these things are not related to Charlie or like your mum's at all. They're just like normal growing pains of figuring stuff out.
His mum is his boss.
Yeah, that's true. I keep thinking, what if I'm more like my real mum? I think the first thing...
You haven't displayed any Charlie-like
No, not a single
attitudes.
shred.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
The biking.
You suck like your dad.
The biking. I think the first thing I need to find out more about is what she was like, and then after I know that, maybe I'll be able to decide once and for all who I am and what I want to do with my life. I really think that's a bad strategy.
You're going to have to do ayahuasca for that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's all roads point to ayahuasca at this point. I didn't know how he'd react, if he'd be mad at me or if he'd accuse me of not being grateful to Lara for all she'd done for me, or if he'd be upset that I didn't want to take over the family business. I'm going to put a new worm on my hook, he said, reeling in his line. That made me feel as though what I had said was so bad that the only response he could muster was to pretend he hadn't heard me. You want to put a worm on your hook, he asked me.
Imagine being married to him. Oof.
Handing me the can filled with soil and worms we'd bought from some kids in Heber City. I shrugged my shoulders. I can't see it'd do much good. Sometimes it does. He sounded optimistic. While he cast again, I gave up and reeled in my line. A minute later, after putting a new worm on my hook, I cast out and let the hook sink to the bottom. He studied his line. Oh, why do we have to do all the fishing bits? Can we just get back to the conversation?
And I'm just thinking how macabre the whole, like, thing is.
I know. He studied his... What's macabre mean?
Kind of... It's, like, evil, but, like, sinister. And a fetishization of, like, death and the dark. And...
Totally. When your mum realised... Oh, he studied his line looking for any sign of a bite. I was surprised when he began to talk. When your mum realised she wasn't going to live much longer, the thing that was the worst for her to realise you wouldn't remember her as you got older. You called me Dada, but you hadn't said her name. I remember one day...
Oh no, is he just recollecting the exact story he's already written about in book 1? I hate this, Jack, you suck.
With nothing to freshen it
That's
or
been most
give
of this
additional
book.
insight. He paused. It was near the end. I was in the kitchen peeling some potatoes and I heard her. She was in the living room and she was saying, "Mummy, Adam, Mummy, please say it. Please say my name." Wow, that's exactly how it was written in the first book.
That's exactly the scene from the movie.
But you crawled off and she broke down and she said, "Adam, please say my name. I'm your mummy. Please remember me."
This sucks so bad. I'm sorry, Banksy.
I'm your artist mummy from the movie, Adam.
I used to be a philosophy major.
Banksy got scared. Sorry,
I'm sorry,
Banksy.
Jack Whalen just drove me to insanity.
It's not your fault, Banksy.
It's
You're
not
still
you,
lovable.
It's Jack.
It's not you, it's Jack. I wiped my eyes. I was glad we weren't facing each other. He continued, "She loved you very much, Adam, and I'm sure she still does. Lately, I've started to think of her as my real mum. You're lucky. You have 2 mums, and they both love you. I know. I love Lara too." His eyebrows raised. "You're calling her Lara now?" "Sometimes. She's your mum, Adam. She deserves a little respect." He's like, "I would never name a woman." It's the most disrespectful thing.
You don't see the Bible or the Book of Mormon naming women. Why should we?
I know, and I do. I appreciate all she's done for me. I had a hard time after your mum died. I couldn't give you the love you needed. Yeah, we know. If it hadn't been for Lara, I don't know what would have happened to you and me. He's just another one of her children. That's the patriarchy. She's always been there for us. I know that, but I still need to know about my real mum. Dad, I'm not happy here. I want to go to New Jersey and stay with her parents and get my life on track again. I like that idea for him, though, don't you?
Yeah.
They've invited me. I could work for Grandpa Eddie. What would you do? He owns some apartments. He's asked me to help him with maintenance. Dad reeled in his line and pulled up the anchor. I reeled in my line. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. If he was mad at me, or if he thought I was being ungrateful for the love Lara had always lavished on me. Just before reaching the dock, he turned to me and said, "If you want to go for the summer, then go ahead. We can get someone who can take your place at work." "Thanks for being so understanding." He nodded. "We'll miss you." "I know, me too." "Are you going to be able to stay away from pornography?" Lest we forget. The real issue.
I love how they always call it pornography.
I know. Didn't he originally say porn site?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. There's a lot I don't know about myself, but one thing I'm sure of.
Will you stay off of pornographic websites? Will you desist from watching pornographic films?
You had one of Banksy's hairs on your moustache, but it's gone now. What I've been doing the past week is not who I am. Because people who watch porn are bad people, and he is a good person.
Exactly.
That night, I called my grandfather in New Jersey and told him I would like to work with him until fall semester began. You mean it? He moved the phone away from his mouth and I heard him shout, "He says he'd like to come out here and work for me."
My boy, my sweet boy! We'll make model trains together.
I could hear Claire in the background. Get out of here! Are you serious?
Are you trying to hug that boy? Stop trying to hug that boy!
Fuck off. Talk to the boy if you don't believe me. We talked for half an hour. Dad and I told Lara what my new plans were. She seemed to take it personally. I felt bad about that. Before going to bed, I packed up my computer and put it in the garage. Then I slept better than I had for several nights. The next day I met with my homeward bishop. After we talked for a few minutes about my plans, he quit talking. I knew that was my cue. My hands were sweating and my stomach muscles were cramping. I've had a few problems lately that I thought I'd better clear up before I leave town. What kind of problems? I lowered my head, trying to get enough courage to talk. I never thought I'd have a problem like this. I glanced at him and he nodded his head but didn't say anything. Last week I stumbled on a porn site. I paused.
Is he talking to his grandpa?
Bishop.
Oh.
I knew it was wrong and I tried to stay away, but I did go back 4 times. How long has it been since you last watched pornography? I cleared my throat. 2
minutes.
Monday night.
30 seconds. I actually have it on my phone.
Sorry, what was that? I see. You obviously feel bad about this, Adam. Which is the main thing, you know? As long as you feel bad about it.
The shame seems to be working.
What troubles you about what you've been doing? My face turned red. It gives you bad thoughts, and, it tempts you to do things you shouldn't do.
Sex is bad.
And you want to escape this, is that what you're saying? It was hard to admit such a thing, but I said, "That's why I came here. I want to quit and never do it again." Good for you, Adam. He smiled at me. I can see you're uncomfortable, but I want you to take a deep breath and relax. I like that. You took the biggest step when you admitted you have a problem. What we need to do now is work together to solve it. If only it was the 12 steps. Are you up to that? I was afraid he was going to ask me to tell him about all the things I had seen, but I nodded my head. If you knew this was wrong...
They usually want you to recollect in great detail what all goes on.
Triggered! If you knew what was wrong after the first time, why did you go back? I had never felt more embarrassed than I did at that moment.
'Cause I am a freak who likes sex.
It was like I couldn't resist it. That's because pornography is addictive. I know that now. One of the strongest desires our Heavenly Father has given us is the drive to reproduce. If it weren't for that, the human race might have died out long ago. The yearning to have a mate is God-given and sacred and nothing shameful. He continued, what is sad is that the world sees sex only as something to be used recreationally and irresponsibly. With their pictures and movies, pornographers make something dirty out of something that is sacred and precious. Do you understand what I'm saying? Oh,
so
honey.
Sacred, so precious. Read your own goddamn history.
I nodded.
Ugh.
When a man becomes addicted to pornography, he has a difficult time relating in a proper way to women. He sees them as objects of lust, not as precious daughters of God. Okay, don't give me that bullshit. The male missionaries on Temple Square averted their eyes when I walked past them the other day. The sister missionaries, they're friendly. They look me in the eye, they smile, like the way a missionary normally should. But when male missionaries see me on a hot girl walk wearing like shorts and a tank top or something, they look away.
Mormons are so
like
sex-obsessed.
I saw 2 boys like actively see me and then look down on the way to like some meeting they had the other Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it's not the porn that's making them see women as objects, it's you.
Yes. Ah!
I sighed. I know. It's like all of this is like, they think it's like this cause and effect, but it's the reverse. And so it's like you are turning just like average women like me wearing average outfits into objects of lust.
Yes.
But it's so absurd that you think you're the ones not doing that by not looking at her and like, just insane.
They're creating the very problem.
Yeah.
So that they can
like you're the biggest perverts. The call's coming from inside the house. You're the baddies. He sees them. I sighed. I know. I told him about shooting baskets with Sierra and Kiera and how inappropriate thoughts had gotten in the way of the innocent fun we were having, so much so that I had to get away from them. Then you know what I'm talking about, and the truth is if you don't control this, it will take over your life. He paused and then repeated, it will take over your life.
You'll maybe even start thinking that it's very normal, and then you won't need us to shame you anymore about it. You'll get so sick of being shamed all the time.
What's so crazy is, like, the worst end result that could come from this is him having sex.
Uh-huh.
Not this, like, cycle of, like, shame and... Because it does take over people's lives. But because of them.
Yeah.
Whereas plenty of people watch porn and are having sex and are just, like, perfectly happy and fine and healthy and, you know.
And, like, normal friendships.
Yeah.
Where you're not constantly sexualizing everybody, including children. Jack, you suck so bad.
It will also make finding a wife very difficult. And if you do marry and continue to feed your addiction, then there's a very real chance you can kiss your marriage goodbye. It might take a few years for your wife to find out, but when she does, she may even agree to work with you for a while. But if you can't stop this activity, she'll lose respect for you and eventually seek a divorce. And when she leaves you, she'll take your kids, and you'll be left all alone with only a computer screen at night to keep you company. Is that what you want?
The Mormon Church is so anti-family. Can't be stressed enough.
I want a wife who'll be able to trust me and kids who will always be able to count on me. Then you know what you have to do. I do, and I will. Good for you. There's a scripture I'd like you to consider. He turned to Alma chapter 22 verse 18 and had me read, If there is a God, and if thou art God, wilt thou make thyself known to me, and I will give away all my sins to know thee, and that I may be raised from the dead and be saved at the last day. Do you know who said this, he asked. The father of King Lamoni, I said. That's right. How do you suppose this king was able to give away all his sins? I don't know, I said. I've never thought about it. Well, suppose he had dancing girls that performed at special dinners. What would he do?
He'd give his sins away like pretzels.
Tell him he didn't need them anymore. That's right. That's how we overcome temptation. We remove the situations that lead to us being tempted. I'm moving to New Jersey to work for my grandfather. One of the reasons I'm going is to get away from the computer. 2004 energy.
New Jersey, the land where there's no computers.
And I'm leaving mine at home.
There are no comps in America.
It's pretty, again, I would say you are in the throes of an addiction if you genuinely feel like you can't even own a computer, because you will not be able to stop yourself from doing it. Like when you cannot have wine in the house.
Okay, boogeyman phenomenon. You project all your fears into the darkness and like, oh my god, I'm fighting this horrible monster.
Yes. What else will you need to do? What about watching TV late at night? What about renting inappropriate movies? I'll stop watching TV and quit renting movies.
I'll go fully Amish out in New Jersey.
Can you do that? I nodded. I have to do it. I can't go back to any of this ever again. I'm happy you see what you have to do. He assigned me to report to my new bishop and let him help me. Also, no wonder the Mormon Church has historically been against therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And we had prayer together. When I shook his hand and left his office, I felt much better. Literally
the example that Bruce R. McConkie uses in Mormon doctrine for why therapy is the false priesthood of the devil is because that it teaches people that it's okay to masturbate.
Yep. When I shook his hand and left his office, I felt much better. I felt like I could succeed and that God would help me. On my way home, I thought about giving my sins away. The changes I needed to make were not just superficial and not just for a week or two. I didn't trust me anymore. That's also a great strategy for a cult. Just make people not trust themselves.
Oh, yeah. You can't trust yourself to be alone in your own presence. You are a threat to yourself.
Fuck. It's so real. To make sure I stayed away from pornography, I knew I would have to sacrifice, and that would mean not renting videos, not watching TV alone late at night, and not using the internet. I felt that I could do it. I just didn't know what I would do to fill the vacuum. He's gonna really struggle when the internet becomes more and more ubiquitous from 2004 onwards. My dad and I went shopping for a used car. After a day of looking, we settled on a 2-year-old Mercury Sable. He paid for it, and I agreed to pay him back. At 8:30
But even
in the morning,
the curvature of the car aroused in me, reminded me of a woman's hips.
At 8:30 in the morning of Monday, June 3rd, I was packed and ready to go. My dad and Lara were hanging around the place to see me off. Lara had gotten up early and baked me some blueberry muffins to take with me. She offered to cook me a big breakfast, but I told her I'd just have some cereal. I made a few last-minute... Why was that an important detail?
Just to again show she's treating him with kindness and he's just like...
No thanks, I'll get my own thing. I made a few last-minute trips to the car and then went into the kitchen. Lara was cleaning up. Well, I guess I'm ready to go. She was working at the sink and didn't turn around to look at me. You'll call us tonight for sure, won't you? I'm sorry for feeling like I have to leave. She turned toward me and I could see tears in her eyes. I understand why you want to learn about your first mum. As you work this out in your mind, Adam, please remember that I love you. I will always love you. I am sorry. I know. It's okay. The distance between us seemed like 1,000,000 miles. Why? Why does it have to feel like 1,000,000 miles? She's showing up, super understanding that you need to go and, like, explore who your real mum was. You're telling her how you feel. So, like, why would there be 1,000,000 miles of distance between you?
She can still be sad and, like, be like, oh, my son's leaving and needs to do this. And it doesn't mean, like...
I just feel like Lara's showing up so well and in a way that would facilitate closeness. And so it's... And, like, it seems like he's responding in a way that is indicative of them having closeness too. You know, he's like, I'm sorry you have to leave. And she's like, I totally get it. Like, what else could you ask for? I don't know why he would feel like 1,000,000 miles away from her. Is it okay if we hug? I asked. Like, who? You wouldn't ask your mum. She still is your mum. You've never known another mother.
I don't know if this makes us awkward now that we've DTR'd and you're not my real mom. You're not even my dream mom. You're not even my top 3 dream moms.
Like, sister Jano, honestly, could be a mummy before you. Is it okay? Of course it's okay. It's what I want most of all. We hugged for a long time and then it was time for me to go. I went outside. My dad was trying to repack the trunk. When he saw me walking out to the driveway with my arm around Lara's shoulder, he gave up and slammed the trunk shut. It'll probably slide out during the trip, he said. Oh, settle out during the trip. I've been reading really poorly today. It's because I've been trying to go so fast because otherwise it's like a 2-hour video. My dad and I faced each other. I got on a map website and printed you out the best route, he said. It's on the front seat. Thanks. We shook hands, then he pulled me into a hug. Be good, he whispered. I will, Dad, I promise. I know you will. I got into the car, waved, and pulled out of the driveway on my way to New Jersey. True to my word, I left my computer at home. I felt as though I could do what the bishop had counselled me. Now the only thing left was to find out who I really was.
Get self-knowledge. We're at it again.
Back at it again with the pursuit of self-knowledge.
God.
Ran a marathon. I feel like we ran a marathon.
This is absolutely Jack's worst book so far.
Oh.
In content, in entertainment value, in just recycling the movie.
I think I'm literally sleepy from like how unstimulating I started to find it.
I have fewer brain cells coming out of this than I did going in.
Thank you all for being here and continuing to support us. We really appreciate it.
Sorry.
We will now go and recover our bodies for another week before we come back at this again.
We are like Charlie.
Because our lives now depend on it. Bye.
Bye.